afternoon. I hope you guys are enjoying the global summer week so far. Very excited today that we have a very distinguished guest in Ibu Veronica Colondam. Ibu Veronica Colondam is the founder and the CEO of YCAB Foundation. This is an organization that we'll know more in a few minutes. But at the same time, Ibu Veronica Colondam is one of our faculty advisory boards at the Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Gadjah Mada. We're actually in the middle of a collaboration with YCAB Foundation. They established a scholarship program which funds not only the students for their education in higher education, but also provide funding for their mothers who are managing micro and small medium enterprises. So this is one-of-a-kind scholarship aiming to tackle not only female education participation, but also to improve the livelihood of micro, small, medium enterprises, particularly those that are managed by women. So we're very happy today to invite Ibu Veronica Colondam. We're going to talk about identifying social business opportunity and social value proposition. So without further ado, let's give a round of applause to Ibu Veronica Colondam. Thank you, Ibu Veronica, for making it to Yogyakarta.
This is on?
Yeah,
okay, I'm good.
this is on.
All right.
Well,
thank you.
First of all, by the way, everyone, I have to match Ibu Veronica's energy today. So thank you for the coffee, by the way. It's going to help me throughout the way. So thank you so much, Ibu Veronica, for coming to Yogyakarta. It's been a pleasure. It's our second year running to have Ibu Veronica Colondam today. So Ibu Veronica, if I may, I'd like to ask, what is YCAB Foundation and what does it do?
Okay. Maybe before we begin,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, we do have two questions on the
That's right.
Mentimeter.
Yeah, we do have a Mentimeter.
The idea is to just to get to know who you are, who the people in the room, because as you know, this is a very difficult hour to be say anything meaningful after lunchtime. So if you don't mind, where is that?
Yeah, if you can run the Mentimeter, it's going to show up. Okay.
So the idea is for us actually to be of service to you. The idea is for us to be saying things that is relevant according to what you need or according to what your impression when you hear the theme, which is, what is that name? Social business
opportunity and
opportunity?
social value.
Okay.
Yeah.
And value proposition, social business, opportunity, and social value.
Social value.
Okay, are we ready? Is everyone
So we'll give everyone a couple
agree
of
this?
minutes.
Yeah, this will be fun.
So while they're filling the Mentimeter, Ibu Veronica, we have around 57 students in this Global Summer Week. We have international students as well. We have students from University of Glasgow. We have students from the Copenhagen Business School, the University of Canterbury, Kyoto University. What else am I missing?
How many countries represent? Oh, I like money. Trading, I like
I
that.
think we have around
Very
10
good
countries represented in this Global Summer Week. Is that right, Ms. Nashtia? I think we have 10 countries represented in this Global Summer Week.
Nanti Sam, I want to take picture.
The picture.
Just want to make sure I get the words.
So Chuan is there.
Business is Chuan.
Chuan is there. Chuan.
For international students, Chuan means profit.
Yeah.
Chuan is profit, but it's like a street slang of profit. We like Chuan. Oh, it's very storytelling, kindness. Oh, that's
We
good.
have starting a change.
Yeah, idea for impact, women entrepreneurs, sustainability, scalability. Wow, that's all very important.
Well, scalability is going to be an interesting topic,
Very
and
good.
social business opportunity.
Yes. Filling
That's
the
a
gap.
challenge on its own.
Oh.
Like, we have reduced inequality as well.
Helping others, that's basic.
Sustained impact.
Yeah. How many, already everybody here,
Yeah.
I guess?
We have narrative as well. Yes, that's from the first day.
Somebody say reduce inequality.
Yeah,
Okay, I
yeah.
like that. Cuan-cuan, empathy, challenges. Challenges is not a lot, right? The bigger the wording, the many,
Yeah.
right? The many people
Exactly,
say,
yeah.
okay,
The social impact is up there,
yeah,
which I think is very related to YCAB Foundation and what
Yeah.
Veronica and her team is doing.
yeah. Okay, so I guess we got the good picture on business leadership, inspiration, opportunity. We're gonna talk a little bit about opportunities,
Yeah.
social businesses opportunity. That's also cuan's already too. This is profitable.
It's
you know,
called yeah.
for all your descendants.
It's called intergenerational mobility.
Intergenerational. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of cuan today. Okay. That's good.
Excellent.
Let's
we
do
have,
next.
We have the next question.
Okay.
Okay, so Bu Veronica at FEB again, particularly the undergraduate program in management, in their 5th or 6th semester, they have to choose one of the 4 tracks. So the first track is business leadership, whereby they have to do an internship in companies. The second is academic leadership, whereby they can, intern as a researcher in a think tank or even in campus. The third one is social entrepreneurship track.
Oh.
Now, maybe like 97% of the students choose business leadership track, and only 2 students choose social entrepreneurship track. So that's, you can see like the challenge.
Challenge, yes. Okay, so we have quite a bit of a number here represented. Those who said start my own business does not include social in their mind, or this is just business for cuan. Who said start
Anyone?
my own business? Just
Anyone
raise
would
my
like to
hand.
share?
Just shout out. You don't have to say whatever. Just shout it out. You have nothing in a social or.
So we have one in the black, the blue shirt. Yeah.
Apa nggak dengar?
Do you mind to share?
Can you just
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So for those who chose starting your own business, what kind of business you're thinking about? Is there a social component embedded to it?
I don't think there's a social component included as of right now, because like right now I'm more focused on the profitability of the business.
I like this class. Yeah, let's go for cuan.
We have one
All
also.
right.
We have one also in the back.
No, nothing wrong
Yeah,
with cuan.
yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong because profitability is sustainability. That's my first statement, and it's quotable. So yeah, please quote that. Join a company. I like this because remember what Jack Ma said in many of his interview that join a big company upon graduation, so you learn about structure.
Yeah.
You learn about structure. You learn about things that is properly done, right? Then they say the second phase of your journey, you attach with the owner, business owner, because you want to learn about passion. I think that's very true about it. I have 3 children older than you. They're all graduated, work and all that, same track. They work for a company, consulting. I think consulting is great. You learn structure in consulting company, not to say anything, but the big 4 or either advisory, accounting. they give you a different kind of structure as you when you want to do business, right? You already have that structure. So those who want to start my own business and those who want to build business with social mission right away would probably need 16 people would need to listen a little bit more closely because this is social entrepreneurship. It's harder than just entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Bu Veronica, we have one in the back.
Yeah, please.
You know, who wanted
Please
to
say
share.
something.
So please.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. My answer is pretty much the same as the one before. Just starting my own because I haven't figured out if I'm gonna build a business with a social mission. I haven't figured out what problem I'm gonna tackle. So for now, just starting my own business just for profit. Yeah, for now.
No, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm glad that majority of the class is actually having the willingness. I would use the word willingness,
Yeah.
because a lot of young people, they're not willing to go through that desert.
Yeah.
Working for other people is not easy.
Exactly.
In the words that I use for my own children, well, I know I'm that kind of mom. I told them that I need you to have. I actually pray that they will have a good boss. Number one, good, but number two, stern, that will give them the humility. This is very important. You can only pick up humility in misery. You can only pick up humility in difficult situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
If everything is all nice and they call it the wine and roses, then you never learn that, difficulties is not a bad thing.
Yeah. Adversity is not a bad thing.
Yeah, so those 16 people who wants to start your own business right away, then we need to talk a little bit about failure maybe.
Sure,
because,
definitely.
well, there's a differentiation between failing and failure, right? So the way when you look at the market, curving down is not always a bad thing. Because when you're at the bottom, the only way is up. So that's all optimism coming from a social, of course, entrepreneurs like myself. So back to you, but enough to, anybody wants to make comment or
Any quick
at this point? No?
From anyone?
No, you're
All
good.
right.
Okay, so.
Well, thank you so much. It's been good to understand what are some of their aspirations moving forward. And again, I would like to invite everyone, if you have any confirmatory questions, if you have any burning questions, please raise your hand at any time during our discussion with Ibu Veronica. Okay?
Yeah, because this is supposed to be like a dialogue. I want you to not fall asleep. So just, if any words that I use or when Pak Gumilang use alien to you guys, just raise your hand. What's that? You don't have to spend your time ChatGPT it and, getting a wrong answer. Sometimes ChatGPT doesn't have context. That's just the problem.
And I'd like everyone to learn from this session, as Ibu Veronica and her team has created and established and curated many programs that are driven for solving problems in our society. So again, this is a great way for us to learn. And at the same time, it's a business that could be profitable for the sustainability of the social mission. So that's another, I would say, like perspective and aspect that we'd like to hear from Ibu Veronica. But before we go into that direction, I think this is a good time for us to learn a bit about YCAB Foundation, and then what's the mission of YCAB Foundation, as well as if you could share some of the flagship program, Ibu Veronica.
Yes. Okay, so YCAB, it was Yayasan Cinta, Anak, Bangsa. It still is, but it doesn't make any sense to anybody who doesn't speak Indonesia. And the thing is, we do take Indonesian business model to the world. So YCAB, Yayasan Cinta, Anak, Bangsa, that becomes just an abbreviation of YCAB. But the word Yayasan means foundation. For those who don't understand Indo, C, the word C, do we have the logo, Sam? C means Cinta. Cinta is love. Anak Bangsa is the children of nation. So the driving force is pretty much love. It's the value, I think, that comes in my life. For me, I'm born and Christian born and raised as Christian. So for me, there should be an integration between what you do and in life and how you make sense of it spiritually. I'm not talking about religion, we're talking about spiritual. So for me, God loved the world, and I love, this is how I love the world. God loved me, I love the world. So that's just the personal model, if I could use that. But it's the product of my own spiritual journey. Hence the word love, because we want to love. So when you love something, you'll give it all out. Right?
And love will find a way.
Love is a many splendid thing. The many splendid things that happened in the last 26 years. So, YCAB was established 1999. So that's a long, long time ago. So now at this point, we are going into the second 25. So the first 25 years, I would say the first sort of like era, and now going into the second era of YCAB. So what happened in YCAB, we started the mission to help young parents. At that point of time, I was a young mother of my 2 young children back then, and thinking about something to do. So all the ladies in the room, you're thinking at some point you become a mother. So it's a different phase of life, but it is inspiring in itself. So I'm thinking how to protect my kids from all the bad things in the world. At that point of time was drug abuse. It was all kinds of, it was HIV and AIDS was big. So we were in the perilaku berisiko atau risky behavior. We are doing the prevention of risky behavior. Then we learn later, 2-3 years later, that, hey, the problem of that kids going into risky behavior isn't really because they want to. In some cases, they kind of have to because of economic problem. So the problem was economic and lack of education thereof. So then we started with Rumah Belajar. That's 1999. This is 2003. Then we started to think about a broader social issues, not just risky behavior, but what's on top of it. Oh, there's an education gap. Oh, there's an economic gap. And then we try to put this together into what it is today. Our logo is like this. If you look at the one down there, it's like a book. It's an open book. So that's education. It's foundational. It's very important for the progress. So that's our first assumption, education. If you do it with heart, both ways, as the organization that enables education, but you guys as the one, taking the education, if you're actually doing it wholeheartedly, then you will see the needs, right? So then we create that morph into, it looks like an arrow, but it's a house. So the idea is prosperous house. This is where the chuan comes in. So education, we want to intervene. So that's our topic, empowerment of education that leads to a better household welfare. So this is, I use the word prosperous, but in Indonesia it's just pretty much sejahtera. Sejahtera means enough, but of course, how much is enough? That's another conversation. But that's why we are.
And I like the way that you put the education on the bottom. Like a
it's
foundation.
Basic. It's
like a basic.
It's foundational. So education, if you do it well enough, you'll get rich. That's probably what this logo is saying. But in our mission, we educate like what Mas Gumilang said in the, we are doing something with UGM, with education, we're promoting education, going to higher degree, so that what? So that you make enough money so you can help your parents economically, then the whole household turns into a welfare or lebih sejahtera. So that's the whole thesis in one logo. Yeah.
So, Ibu Veronica, just to get the elephant out of the room, can you share a bit about, what's the differentiation between social entrepreneurship and just general entrepreneurship, so that students here.
Well, let me tell you the similarity is cuan.
Is cuan.
The similarity
Profit.
is cuan, is profit. You need to make, okay, in the social world, you don't use the word profit, it's like forbidden, I don't know why, but there's this connotation that you don't use the word profit and social mission in one sentence. I don't know why, I don't know who started it, but we use the word surplus. But in Indonesia, either surplus or profit or whatnot, you still pay corporate tax upon. You're probably, who's from European country, UK, US, right? In your countries, giving for charity is what? Is tax deductible, correct? In Indonesia, one of the very, I don't know, I wouldn't say that, maybe India and few other countries where giving is not tax deductible. So no, it's profit deductible. It's sad, right? When you give, you have no incentive to give.
Yeah, it's not a one-to-one reduction.
Yeah, for public listed company, you can put your CSR as an expense. So you can expense it out. You guys from business management school, right? So you guys know these words. So you can expense it out. So that means you have EBITDA, which is net.
Yeah.
But in non-public listed company in Indonesia, your CSR should come from your EBITDA. So that's profit reduction. It's not tax deduction. So that's the first problem.
Okay.
Becoming a social entrepreneur is to choose. You have to choose. You want to start with a foundation or you want to start as a company. It was before until November last year, after 7 years of trying to push the social entrepreneurship agenda into the national agenda, we got to work with the presidential decree to understand what social enterprise. We're going to get into what the criteria of social enterprise.
Okay.
But then Indonesia, for the first time, we have a PT. PT is Indonesia company.
Yeah, public
listed,
company.
Like limited LTD in Singapore or Southeast Asia, LTD, limited. So Indonesia PT, now we can, if you feel like you are a business with social mission, you can register yourself as a PTS. So it's a PT with social mission under the Kumham.
Okay.
So from last year, there are 250 companies that's already self-registered as a PTS. So that's interesting.
And these are like
that's interesting.
micro, medium, even large companies?
I think I did ask that. Well, knowing our government, they don't do mapping right away.
Okay.
We're probably going to do the mapping for them. So I'm very interested too to do that. So that we have 250 social enterprises, which is structured as a company that is by law is profitable. You can be profitable, right? Yayasan in Indonesia Foundation is non-profit.
Yeah.
But again, back in the US, it's all different. In the US, there's a 501c3, which is a company, PTS. But social, you can be non-profit.
Okay.
You can sell, you can trade. Yeah. Somebody said the word trading just now in the Mentimeter. Yeah, Yayasan in Indonesia, you cannot trade.
Right.
But you can have a business unit.
Okay.
So the whole spirit of why YCAB is a social enterprise today, or I don't know, we're a mix of all things. It's because of that spirit, surviving. We want to survive. We want to be profitable enough to cover our costs so that once you can cover your costs, then you can scale. Then you can thrive. Before covering your own costs, nothing you can do. Unless, of course, you can get sponsor money, you can get collaboration, you can get partnership. Yes, Mas. Yeah, so we're talking about timeline, right? So 1999, when we started to want to do something outside of myself, this is my personal thing. So the family actually put aside, 2000 dulu 500.
In 2000,
Well,
500
million. We put aside 500 million. That was 2000 at that point of time.
2000
The dollar was only 2000. That's
2000
$250,000.
Yeah.
So we put aside that kind of money from the family to do something, to give back to the society through Yayasan. Okay, so that was the business model. But then throughout the time, we've been doing things our own. We didn't ask for a donation. We didn't do anything. Nothing to do with our business. We do not even connect it with our business. It's not a CSR. Also, this is purely giving. This is purely charity. You know, we should get a tax deduction for that, but we didn't. That was not the point. So we wanted to give. Then 5 years down the line, a multinational found us.
Okay.
That was Unilever. And they said like, you guys doing amazing work with the schools at the point of time. Why are you doing it alone? We can scale together. Okay, how? I didn't even know about CSR. I didn't know that company can give nonprofit money to do programs together. I didn't know that. So Unilever even came and offered us CSR. That's the first time I heard CSR, corporate social responsibility. So, oh yeah, sure, let's do it. So from that, our work has scaled up. And then we started to work with more corporations, multinationals in this case, until today, to do projects together. But in the evolution, you heard the beginning, it was risky behavior, then education, then economic empowerment. This is the whole evolution of what you call that, value proposition, right? The business school word is value proposition. So why did we evolve through town? Because we're following the needs on the ground. So I think it's important to have an open communication with the beneficiaries and be on the ground, your feet on the ground, not from the office headquarters. Be with the people. Then there you can actually feel what is needed, and you can actually feel whether I'm doing things efficiently or not efficiently. Is it answering the needs of the beneficiaries or not, right? So I spent the first, maybe I have to say before COVID, so the first 20 years, a lot on the ground, a lot more than after, which I think I should do more. But the evolution that you're asking is in terms of program, the value proposition, in terms of funding, in terms of, in the name of survivability at that point of time. The first company, business unit, that we set up, it was actually born 1999 or the year 2000. So we were born August 2000 and 1999. The first business unit probably the spring of 2000. That's this is the entrepreneurialism or realistic of me wanting to sustain the good work that you do. My simple thinking, if I started a business, it was still disconnected from the mission. I didn't know anything about putting things together, integrated. So it was anything. If I make profit there, I can use the profit to fund the social mission. Little did I know, there's such a thing called social entrepreneurship. I didn't know this until I was in INSEAD. There was 2008 or 2009 when I did take, it just came up to me, social entrepreneurship. Oh, what's that? That sounds cool. So that was an MBA program, one of the MBA program, but focused on social entrepreneurship. So I learned about social entrepreneurship in INSEAD. That was like, it took me, I don't know, what was that? So 10 years. 10 years doing things as usual, as I know how, the best that I could, to make the mission alive. But then 10 years later, then of course, after the first business unit, we created a second business unit, third business unit, There was so many, it was a mess. Until the 10th year, I learned about social entrepreneurship and it just clicks with me. Like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Oh, this is who I am. This is how we're doing things, right? So that was then. Then there's another era where we're trying to tidy things up because when foundation owns business units, so many, it's just messy.
It's messy. Okay.
Messy, who told us messy? Our auditor. Our auditor, we've been very lucky to work with Big Four. It was KPMG, I think I remember. You have to do things more conventionally. Your yayasan is just too business oriented. They use the word business oriented, like, okay. But then I said, like, but this is what social entrepreneurship is. Oh yeah, try to explain that to auditors.
Yeah.
They don't care. They said, all these businesses that you have as a business unit under yayasan has to be tidied up. Then we thought, oh, we need a new structure. Then fast forward to 2000, what was that? The first time we did microfinance? Lan? That was 2009. So 2009, that was 99, 2009. Oh yeah, that's actually 10 years. Then we talk about education. I remember talk about 2003. I started a learning center. Learning center for kids who actually drop out of the education mainstream to come back to rumah belajar.
And this could be adults as well.
Yeah.
And they could be adults as well.
Some were adults who
Okay.
have not actually done with their SMA,
SMA,
the high school level.
Okay.
So we did rumah belajar for a long time, hoping that they get education and they get better off. But that was a dream. It doesn't work that way. Okay. From creating that rumah belajar, the learning center, this is before education was free in Indonesia. The education in rumah belajar was free already. But people still drop out. What's the problem? So then we learned, oh, the problem is economy. Then I remember UNICEF data at that point of time, 79% of children who drop out of Indonesia is because they don't have money, transport to go to school. So the problem is economic.
Yeah.
So that's why then we started the microfinance, try to tie this in with the education of the children of our client, which is mothers. Everybody familiar with the concept of microfinance? This is a group lending, all women, very small loan, like 500,000 back then was what? Today's money is about $20.
Maybe $1 million, almost
million?
close, yeah.
Yeah, $100. Even today, our microfinance has been around since 2009. How long is it? 15 years.
Yeah.
What's your average loan? $500, $300, $400, $400
Okay.
US dollar, which is in Indonesian money is quite a bit lah, 7 million.
6-7 million.
Rupiah, right?
Yeah.
So that's that. So the problem, you see, we need flexibility,
Yeah.
the openness. When you try to fix one problem, you're faced with another problem, yet another problem. This is just talking about the social problem on the ground, not talking about the problem that you have at the corporate level.
Okay.
How you deal with the people, how you deal with the funding, how you deal with partnerships and all of that. So I think flexibility, those who wants to become entrepreneurs, just non-social or just for-profit or social entrepreneurs, you need to have that resilience. I think resilience is very important.
very key.
See,
Yeah.
remember I said humility in the beginning? Yeah, only through that, through the valley of the death, one can learn humility and resilience. There's no other way. If you go have fun and party all the time, that's what you do.
Yeah.
It's different.
It's different
right?
now.
So let's. So does that respond to your question? I didn't get your name. Sorry. Yeah. And Naya, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we do have a couple of businesses
Yeah.
to support the mission.
Now,
Yeah.
Ibu Vero, I think this is also a good time, as a follow-up to Naya's question. Social entrepreneurship is about identifying social business opportunity. But identifying social business opportunity is not straightforward. identifying social problems, I think we in Indonesia and I guess in many developed countries could be straightforward. We have issues of stunting, for example, in Indonesia. We have issues of undernutrition in Indonesia. We have issue of low education. There's a low enrollment in early childhood education, for example.
Mental health
and
is
mental
big,
health
yeah.
is also a problem. But trying to kind of like think about what could be a social business opportunity among these problems, but at the same time we don't want to seen as trying to make too opportunistic in the same time. So could you share to our students here today what could be a structure that they can follow to identify that social business opportunity?
Yeah, I think you have to follow what your heart leads you. I know it sounds a little bit cheesy, but it's important. Of all the social problems in the world, what really, means something to you? Usually in my case, my friends who are social entrepreneurs, they usually start with the problem they see in their own home or in their own neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's a thing or a cause that is dear to their heart. I've seen people who's, to just give it all out in, say, autism. They have an autistic brother. They have an autistic sister. That's why. Or those who actually lost their parents at an early age, they will be on orphanage and all that.
Yeah.
Usually, that's what happens. So there's a trauma. I think this is the question.
Okay.
What's a trauma in your life? That's usually the driving point of, the kind of cause that really close to your heart. I didn't realize that. I only realized this I was doing a program as a social entrepreneur Schwab in Harvard. That was 2018. And remember, 20 years, almost 20 years have gone by. I didn't realize why I'm doing this because I was asked by a professor there. This is a public narrative professor. Who's that? Who's that guy again? Howard. Samantha will. Who's the public narrative Harvard guru? This is all the head of states usually go and take, narrative lesson to do public speaking. So I was in his class and I was asked that one question: why did you do the things you do? And I said I would always say there's a spiritual calling. Okay, that's great. There's a spiritual calling. So then what? Why education? Why economic empowerment? I didn't know the answer to that until, we were broken up like this group into a group of 5. So in the smaller group, there was almost like a counseling session, they talk about trauma. What is the thing that you hate the most or the thing that happened to you so badly? And wow, I was amazed because every one of the social entrepreneur there actually experienced something. Like, for example, this one guy from France, he's into climate.
Okay.
Right? He was into preserving the wilderness. And he said and then after question and then deliberation in the group, then he realized, I was 9. I used to go to my grandpa's cabin by the Alps and the glacier was still icy.
Now it's melting.
Right? And then at some point of my life, I went there as a teenager and it was dried up. And I was so sad. That was very close, very personal. And now he's onto the saving the planet, helping with the global warming. So that I didn't know this. I was a school dropout apparently. At some point of my life, I didn't go directly to university because my father died on the week of final exam. And to make the things, I was I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know how to grieve. This is completely not in my schedule, right? So today's kids, they use the word take a gap year.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a luxury to call it gap year. For me, it was a dropout. Dropout meaning that I finished my high school, but I didn't know where to go, university, because I canceled all the application that I had because at that point of time, it was economic issue. Yeah. I didn't know who to gonna pay for my education. So that was that. And that created a trauma in my head, in my heart, that I tried to bury it. And I didn't realize that why I'm doing education, because I just a dropout helping another dropout. That was powerful.
that was powerful.
When I learned about it, it was powerful. So the question, how to identify social business? What is the one thing that is really dear to your heart? Then you start building from it. Then you start thinking about how to find a solution to that problem in the profitable way. I wouldn't say the word profitable as in you're doing humanitarian for your own interest or selfish gain. I'm not addressing that. Please do not confuse that. But how to do it, okay, the other word, sustainably. The word sustainably is pretty much saying that you need to cover your costs, then you have something to move on to the next level. So that's my story, and that's how I learned. So that's how to identify and about the business side of how to find solution. Not every social business has a business solution to it. Not every.
Yeah.
That's why I was grateful when we brought from education to economic empowerment. Wow, that opens up a very good opportunity, because when you just do education for the poor, that's going to be forever cost center.
Okay.
It's going to be all raising capital, donation, as Nadia say, just donation money, and it's tiring to raise capital or donation or charity in the climate of Indonesia, which is there's no tax deduction. It was so tiring. So when we brought, or the word maybe we were led to understand that the problem with education was economic, then we were in a way taken to a journey by my daughter. She was actually 12 at that point of time, doing a community learning or community study, community hours, and brought me to Desa Leles, where the microfinance. I've not seen microfinance with my own eyes. I heard about it, that Muhammad Yunus got his Nobel Prize on it. But I learned how 500,000, how was that in even US dollar now? $4, like $5.
$30, I guess. Close to $30.
$30. $30 now. It actually changed the whole thing, because they could double their income with that kind of small intervention. So I was like, hey, let's try this, because let's see if we give the small intervention of money, of loan, they could double their income, then they have money to send their kids to school. See, that was just a normal, kind natural flow of trying to find solutions. See, back when you love something, again, you try your best to find a solution to the problem you have at hand. So I'm not gonna scare you guys, but maybe it's just us. We spent the first 25, maybe 20 years to really figure it out, what it is, the business model.
Okay.
Yeah. We tried this, it didn't work. We tried again. It's tiring. It doesn't click until we combine the two. You create the economic empowerment opportunity for the mothers, and you send the kids to the school, right? And then getting them to the higher education through scholarship. And then we see the progress. We see that we bring them from $2 poverty income to $6 to $8 poverty income. And we stop there. We stop there. Why? Because it's already aspiring middle class. We cannot take them all the way to, we just have to know the target group that, we aim. We have to kind of put a time limit also on their progress. Otherwise, it's going to be forever.
It's going to be forever, yeah. So Ibu Vero, it's a bit impromptu, but I think it's good for us to give them, I guess, a couple of minutes just to think about, what are some of the social issues that you care about, and also whether, you can think of kind of like a social business opportunity. Although it took Ibu Vero and her team 25 years, but they started somewhere, you know. And so I think, you know, a couple of minutes for you guys to think about, you know, social issues that you care about, and then we'll do some
Maybe
sharing.
I will
guess,
just ask those who actually in the Mentimeter.
Yeah.
So
If
is it
possible.
6, 7 people? 6 people.
Yeah, the six.
Social?
The social mission.
10.
Yeah,
6.
6.
Sorry, we don't want to put you on the spot here, but just shout out. Those who are actually one of the 6, just say what is your social aspiration? What is the problem you want to solve? Is there anybody who wants to just, or those are not part of the 6? I wouldn't know. So yeah. No, nobody want to shout out? Yeah.
Or do you have any, you know, social issues that you care about? You know, you can share it, you know, for a discussion. This is before I'd like to ask Ibu Vero about one of their YCAB Foundation's flagship program, which is Ibu Harta Anak Pintar, which is, you know, it's very interesting program.
What do you call this now? Oh, it's
Prosperous Mother,
Smart Kids, yeah.
Maybe anyone want to share about their,
the premise of change? Maybe it's useful for me to show the premise of change. This is just to recap what YCAB is about. So we bring them from $2 per capita income to $8 per capita income. And this is our premise of change. And I had the privilege of working with Josh Hui. He's part of the Peter Senge's MIT's, what is that, system learning, is it system dynamic, right? So he was adamant that in order for you to create a business model that works and self-enforcing each other, it has to be closed loop. This is very Peter Senge's thinking. So we were brought to a place to think. This is 3 full days to really put things together from the education component, from the economic component, and where are we bringing them? So we put it there, and we found this loop. Of course, it starts with money, the gray area. Now it doesn't sound right, the gray area. Well, the gray part, it's all money, right? It's philanthropic capital, we call it, is impact investment. Then it just comes down to social investment. Why do I differentiate between philanthropic capital and impact investors? Is anybody familiar with impact investment with impact? No? So philanthropic capital is just giving, normal, donation, right? But in this space, we call it philanthropic capital. And impact investing. Impact investing was a big buzz. I don't know, 10 years now, maybe? So impact investing is like investing in startup, but startup with social mission. So it's a direct investment. So they call it impact investment. But now, I rather use the word, because we have our own, we're gonna show you the structure of YCAB so that you understand that we're not just foundation. What we do through the YCAB Ventures arm is the economic empowerment. It's because it's regulated by our SEC of Indonesia, which is OJK. So this is how we found ourselves doing after 20 years. So this is just before COVID. We're happy with this, how the YCAB Foundation owns YCAB Ventures. Then the Ventures does everything else. The Ventures is doing financing, the microfinancing. And the investment, we call it social investment. Why? It's not exactly impact investment, because we differentiate the impact investment portfolio, the impact fund portfolio, and we call it under the umbrella of social investment. You go back to the model again? Yeah, so that's where we do. So we invest, so here's a thing about our sector too. People use the word investment, social investment, they don't actually mean investment where your principal is back. They just use investment as a verb. Do you understand? So I know it's confusing. I get that myself too, because I come from an investment banking family. So to me, investment is investment. But in this sector, when it's actually paired up with the word social, it's not 100% investment. It can be investment. It can be actually giving. So it's a broad umbrella. So we put it social investment. We invest in the microfinance because it's not only sustainable, it's profitable. But the profit we reinvest back for the education to enable the education of the children of our clients. And then what? We want them to be like you, to be self-reliant, to secure jobs, or to create jobs in some, skills that we teach them. And they can give back. They can participate in the social investment. So the social investment on top is, the question is what? You want your graduates to donate? Well, that would be ideal, but no. So we created a product which is with capital market, and it's a mutual fund. You guys know mutual fund, right? Mutual fund, is it something, a new word? National? Okay, mutual fund. So mutual fund is a public fund which is traded in the capital market that you can actually participate and invest. This is serious investment, but in a smaller unit. So our unit is 100,000 rupiah, which is, berapa dolar lagi itu? $6, $7. So with the $7, you can actually be part of the big social investment, which is run by our group. So, and the money, we pull it together and reinvest back to the microfinance and the whole, circular back. So you get that. So think about, this is going back to the social business, social modeling, social innovation. You need to have that kind of mindset. What is my business model? What is my premise of change? What is the problem do I want to solve it sustainably? Maybe that's it. Until you find that, then you're not done yet. It's still a journey, because nothing can go on, without money. No matter how great your foundation or your nonprofits program, but if you have no money, nobody give, nobody invests in you, then nothing can work, right? So very important. Go ahead. Oh. How do I get? It's a process. But the first part, it was Unilever, right? You remember that? I told the story that they found us because we've been doing this ourselves for 5 years, and they found us. And then I started to learn about corporate social responsibility. So that's the whole journey opens up, the whole journey of partnership with other brands. So that's one bucket here. The other bucket is there's still, on the 10th anniversary, we did our first gala. This is just getting people to donate, right? Because people are starting to ask me, wow, number one, you're serious in doing what you're doing. Number two, can we be part of it? So we open an opportunity for friends and families to actually donate. So that's that. But later on, because we set up ourselves as a ventures as well, we got people to invest in us. And I guess the short answer to your question is track record. Track record, integrity, and I think you should just be the kind of public perception of you, it has to be, when people really directly engage with you, they know you're for real. Unfortunately, the things that we cannot bypass is time.
Yeah. And also the fact that, your foundation is also audited.
Audited,
also
yes, of course.
provides
that's all the thing that we do.
Transparency.
Yeah, accountability, transparency, and I think the word now is ESG, is the governance has to be clear, and then there should be a certain composition of gender. Now, our corporate partners, banks, they look at the composition of your board. if you do not have a representation of women, it's harder for you to get yourself financed or invested in. That's just the truth out there. Maybe in some businesses it's more evident than the other businesses, but in social sector, we have to be represented equally. So that's what also we need to empower the women in our organization to rise up to leadership, because very important. And I think, yeah, the prudence of your model, your finance, and the transparency of it speaks, yeah, louder than it is. So, yes, I did. Yeah, it was actually with my late mom. Oh, that's like 25 years later. So yeah, I know it's a long time.
It was last year. It was last year, I think. Was
Oh
it?
yeah,
Was it released last year?
we launched the first mutual fund last year. It was a balanced fund, so it's 70% bonds base, which is quite good, and 30%. This is not it. 30% equity. So we have a good deal with the asset managers, because we cannot issue our own mutual fund. It's regulated by SEC, right? So we have to work with the asset managers. So the asset managers, you know, the 220 window, when they manage a fund, they get 2% management fee. They share half of it with us. They actually donated, that's your word, donated to us, the asset manager themselves. So if the portfolio becomes big and good in terms of return, financial return, they will give, there's an algorithm that will give them a daily. Like today, can somebody check Juara Capital? We have it online, so you can check the today's return, and then it will adjust approximately between 1 to 5. So above 10, 12% return. This is in IDR, not US dollar. You will get around 5% max. So there's a cap. That's an SEC thing. And then there's a minimum. That's just negotiation thing. Then we try to raise $10 million. So this is Juara Empowerment Balance Fund. What's that? No, that's 18%. 18.2 return.
That was since last year?
So this is since last year, yes.
Since last year. Wow, that's a large.
Oh, no, this is 2 days. This is 2 days. It's daily since inception. Yeah, but that depends when you come in.
That's right, yeah.
That depends when you come in. So we try to raise $10 million from this, and then we've kind of raised half of it. But this is not philanthropic money, this is investment money, okay? Which we can depend on the 1 to 5% return back to us in terms of unrestricted fund. Meaning, we don't have to do anything with the money. They trust us to manage the money. So that's unrestricted donation, right? And last month, we issue the second mutual fund, which is fixed income. So this one 18, the other one fixed. It's gonna be forever like that, flat at 6.5%.
Okay.
So that to compare with our bank deposit, which is only 4.5%, we are a bit 2% higher than bank deposit. The mutual fund, and the mutual fund, it's final, the tax is final, but bank deposit, we have to pay 20% tax to the government upon income. So we try to connect, I think, the evolution, if I could use the word, has been very, the spectrum of our evolution is from completely charity to now we include, investment kind of way to support the mission. This is all to support the mission. So we're not making money for the sake of making money because that's not the point. But the point is, maybe this is the feature of social entrepreneurship to differentiate. You asked earlier, is the reinvestment of profit. In UK, there's a regulation that you have to reinvest 51%.
Okay.
If you are a social company.
Okay.
In the US, the spectrum is big. 100%, the other one 0%. This is benefit corporation.
Yeah.
Right? You can actually take all the dividends back to the shareholders, but the non-profit, the 501c3, you cannot take the profit out.
Okay.
You have to reinvest for the mission. So the spectrum is big. So the Indonesia condition that we want to differentiate, we are following the UK criteria of social entrepreneurship to reinvest a majority, 51% of the profits into to support the mission. So that makes you a social enterprise. Otherwise, if you take all the profit, nothing wrong with that. Nobody's gonna blame you. It's your business. You can keep it in Indonesia, but you just don't register it as a social company.
As a PTS.
Right? You can keep all the profit. Doesn't matter, but it's just not a PTS. Although you're addressing social mission. So that's the difference. I think there's a G20 meeting that was back, this is before COVID, but then what they established is guidelines. Guidelines on what is profit for purpose, they call it profit for purpose, looks like. So there's they call it either asset lock, profit lock, or mission lock. It's either or situation. You can take one of three. But there's a whole
list,
big criteria of what social enterprise is, but you can actually maybe ChatGPT or Google it, profitable purpose G20, and will give you the list of what it means to be a social enterprise. So it's either profit lock meaning not lock for good, but lock to be reinvested to support mission.
So to support back the mission.
Or you want to lock the mission itself, so whatever business I do, it has to be about women, it has to be about orphan, it has to be about a certain social cause, or you lock the asset. Locking the asset is not popular. it's.
So Ibu Veronica, if you can share with us, I think your microfinance is quite unique in the sense that it's for female. And can you share other unique feature of your microfinance program? And there's a gap, at least in my knowledge, and probably in also our students' knowledge, between doing a mission and then creating profitability and then reinvesting back. So how do you kind of like ensure the sustainability of this whole process? Because I think, if we're talking about microfinance, not all of them kind of like pay back.
Yes, let me tell you a story on that. 2012, I was doing a learning journey in Bangladesh. I was actually with Lani there. She's, Lani, hi, say hello. She's actually a commissioner of the YCAB Ventures, not the foundation Ventures. And James is doing the microfinance itself, the operation of microfinance. So we did the learning journey, and I came with my social mind. I really thought, this is just me being me, social-minded, that microfinance was actually socially driven. But then I realized it wasn't, because I kept asking, we met with three biggest microfinance in the world, I should say. Number one, of course,
Grameen Bank?
Grameen is not the biggest, but the most popular, BRAC.
Okay.
BRAC is the biggest in the world.
Okay.
BRAC, today probably 13 million customer, 6 billion.
Is it in Bangladesh, BRAC?
Bangladesh. But then BRAC operates in 6 countries.
Okay.
So in total, 13 million customers, 6 billion loan.
Wow.
What is that? They call it outstanding.
Outstanding.
Yeah. In Indonesia, I'm also in PNM, by the way, guys. So PNM is the largest, I have to say, microfinance in the world with 15 million active customer, but $4 billion outstanding. So we're the biggest. Anyway, I learned about BRAC. We learned about Grameen, of course. And we learned about this one. At that point of time was they call it the most efficient or something by Forbes magazine. The most efficient microfinance. So ASA. So I was there. And I spoke with the CEOs, and I kept asking them about the social mission. Yeah. And at the end of the day, he was like, hey, Veronica, we are a bank. We do CSR. We don't track their welfare. And I was like, wow. Then I was like, I felt like I got slapped in my face. thinking that they were
Social.
socially driven like us. No, they're just banks. And they actually live by the loyalty of their customers, meaning bringing them out of the poverty, bringing them from the journey from 2, 6 to 8 is not their business. Their business is actually to keep them in 2 or 3 or 4 maybe, but they want to see, loyalty. Loyalty meaning the mom and the daughters one day become their clients, doing the same business at the same corner. And then I came back home heartbroken. I thought, really? This is just business? I thought this is hope. I thought this is something that will change life. That's why I told Lani, hey, we have to do things differently. We have to do it differently so far that we are not become them. Because there was always a question, right? How do you balance between mission and business and mission? It's really hard. The balancing work is hard. But if you know that you're doing this for the sake of humanity, it's for the sake of creating welfare, then you better do impact measurement. This is what it comes. The seriousness, guys. If you really love what you do, right? Cinta, Anak, Bangsa, right? You love. Because you love, you want to know. So we have to track. We've been doing tracking of welfare of our client. We're probably holding the biggest data in Indonesia because we track them. So we know how they look like before COVID, how they are today. Right? That's another conversation because we just have a new data, which is interesting. I will share with you. So that's that. So the learning journey made me believe that there should be an integration. You cannot address one social problem alone in isolation of the others. Right? So education, empowerment, economic empowerment in one, mother and child towards a better welfare. So that's what we call the Ibu Harta Anak Pintar, proper mom, smart kids. Because the smart is not just smart means they get education, that's a good thing. They graduate, that's even better, but they get jobs because we need them to be self-reliant individual.
Now, yes, Naya, please.
They're confused. They're still confused now. A lot of people still confused.
Can you say that the microfinance model, your microfinance model is already stable in some sense?
Or
is it
we're stable from the beginning. We know what we want to do, but to actually realize it is a different issue. You know what you want to do, but realizing it is another journey. Because why? Because the education, remember the Rumah Belajar, the learning center that we created, it never in sync with the operation of microfinance, right? And then at some point, I feel like a failure, but I know it's not, but it's an executive decision that comes out of us. It was just recently, about 2 years ago, that we decided, okay, this is a wrong way of modeling. We have to just slash out, close down the Rumah Belajar, focus on the microfinance and find the children of our clients and send them to education. Then that's the only way for us to be integrated. Because otherwise, it never in sync. Opening a school, opening an operation, it's hard. It's hard to have both mission and business. So you just have to pick in one. You have to focus on the business, then you do your mission there. Instead of try to put them together, it's just costly, time consuming. And we tried out so long, and now we're happy. But again, yes, people are like, microfinance? Why do you make education prerequisite, like the condition of loan? Because we want them to grow together and to create this prosperous house. Because I don't see my clients as just mere clients. I see them as the leverage to create change in the household, mothers, right? So it's a different way of looking at it, but the the business is kind of the same, but looking at it is different. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. To monitor
The children, do they go to
the
school?
children.
Or-
Yeah, that's another journey. It's not easy, but at this point, since we have the free education, Indonesia, I assume you're from Indonesia? Okay, yeah, since that free education, we hardly found, in a way, dropouts, but of course, COVID is another story. But then, now we are actually trying to just promote them to higher education. Because of course, based on our assumption, those who actually go to higher education or have a specific skills, they would have better chance of making money of their own. The kids make money, meaning independent now, not anymore a burden to the family economy. So tracking is an issue, but we do track. Yeah.
Yeah. So you shared that you collected data on the beneficiaries of this program. Can you share with everyone their kind of like their journey so far in this microfinance
Journey.
The data, the data that you shared. Yeah.
Wow, okay. I'm gonna pull it out. Oh, this is interesting. If I'm gonna read it out, I do have the welfare study. Yeah. Tapi tadi.
And this is just done recently, Ibu Vero?
This is just done, yeah. Arif, your friend actually. Arif, right? It's Arif.
Oh, Pak Arif
Arif.
Wisono Lubis.
I know. We should do it with you. Oh, okay. Interesting. Very interesting. What we see in terms of Chuan. Okay, let's go back to Chuan. Chuan, not for us, for the beneficiaries,
yeah.
Their income, their margin was slashed very badly. From 2 digits, I would say from 3 digits before COVID.
Okay.
See, I remember I said intervention. Intervention, you give 1 million, you give 2 million rupiah, and they double their income, daily income. Triple sometimes.
Yeah.
That down to like only 9 to 10% now, the profit. So what it tells us is that it's just difficult, a lot more difficult for them to sell with higher margin. I don't know, it's daya beli, maybe it's the purchasing power, is it the market, or something else? I'm sure it's economic. This is a macro thing. So that's sad. But what, okay, let me go back to what is interesting. Okay, we see a demographic shift of the client in terms of their net income per capita. Indonesia, as you probably know, now divided into 2 population. Those, because we are upgraded to a middle income country.
Yeah, upper middle income country.
You guys know about this, right? No? Okay, those Indonesians should know this, that we were developing economy, right? Emerging economy. Now we are middle income country. What does that mean? The population was actually divided into poor, aspiring, middle class, and upper middle class. Now it's just divided into 2. Either you can spend in terms of PPP, purchase parity, 6.85 under or over. Yeah. So we saw that the growth of our client pool. So it was back before COVID, it was only 34% who are in that pool who can spend 6.85 and up. Now it's 65%.
Okay.
That can mean 2 things, right? It means that we're probably not targeting the right audience anymore.
Okay.
That means we have to graduate them.
Yeah.
We have to find new client, which is hard for our operation these days. And but we have done something to move them up the economic scale. So that's an
kind of
interesting.
like an impact in some sense.
That has an impact.
Ibu Vero, I'm gonna interrupt you because there is a hand raised over there.
Okay. Hi.
Yeah, I just want to ask about the information you just told us, which is Indonesia. You just said that like it's officially
Middle income.
become the middle high income, or it's just the middle income?
Middle, we
It's
call it-
upper middle income at the moment.
Okay, so upper
we
middle
call it
income.
upper middle income. Yeah.
Upper middle income. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, was that like in the whole country, or it's just in some specific region?
In the whole country.
Oh, in the whole country.
So
okay.
with that, which is sad, 68% of Indonesian population now under 6.85 PPP per day.
Oh, okay.
Because of that, that's why our government is not happy with the
Yeah.
data.
And they have to adjust.
Yeah,
They have to.
it was actually 63%. Then
Yeah.
it was adjusted up to 68% by World
Yeah.
Bank. So it's good and bad, right? The whole country. It shows that there's a very thick underprivilege in a way, right? So, and guys, I also just learned that the 6.85 PPP is actually based on US dollar 5,000 instead of 16,000 today. So we're not talking about the whole reality of, but we track income. We don't track PPP. We cannot track expenditure. It's hard to ask these questions, but we know how much income they earn. So that's a different perspective. So you kind of really know what you want to measure in terms of your impact measurement. For us, the easiest way is to measure the money. In terms of, okay, we measure everything else. We measure self-efficacy, for example, for our clients in terms of making decisions, in terms of planning for futures. This is important, that we see an increase of self-efficacy. We also see the increase of resilience. COVID only taught us one thing. Those with savings survive longer. Those without savings survive longer. So we saw that in terms of savings, I think, where's that? We saw the increase of those who actually have a higher saving with between 1 to 5 million of all our clients, which is above 5 years.
Wow.
You know, who have actually been with us 5 years,
5 years,
they have thicker savings than those who have less, which is good. That's the whole point, right? So we measure all these things because they call it perilaku tabungan membaik. What's that? A better
saving behavior
with 82% having savings from 58% in 2018. Now 82% have savings.
Okay.
Those who have savings above 1 million increased 47%, from 47% in 2018 to 76% in 2024, and 63% who have tabungan or savings between 1 to 5 million are actually those who have been with us for at least 5 years. So the longer they are with us, the better welfare they are, right? Yeah. So the data has supported that. But we need to now connect the dots whether those increase is actually in a linear increase with the education of their children and how the children earn income one day. So this is an interesting journey.
That's kind of like an international, intergenerational mobility story. Kind of.
You put it beautifully, intergenerational mobility. See, that's the word.
So, Ibu Vero, so this is quite a resource-intensive program, resource-intensive intervention, the Ibu Harta Anak Pintar program. And one of the challenges in the social impact sphere is actually scaling it up. So can you share a bit about some of the challenges that you and your team face when scaling this program?
Well, when we talk about scaling, we want to talk quantitatively, right? We want to grow the number of people that we serve, right? But with that, grows the number of money we have to raise. So that's also the thing that where balance comes in. What's the sweet spot? Maybe that's the word. Sweet spot is your holy grail in this mission, in whatever mission. It doesn't say, I guess there was sweet spot in terms of if you're not into social mission, then even in your business, you need to have a sweet spot between your inventory and how much the speed of your sales, for example. Too much inventory, you lose. Yeah, it doesn't look good on your profit P&L. So these things, and add that equation with social. Wow. So becoming a social entrepreneur is hard.
So I guess this leads us to the next question, Ibu Vero. But before, anyone wants to ask questions? Any burning questions? Yes, please.
Okay, test. Okay, so I actually want to ask a little bit more about the investment, especially the social investment earlier. So in regular investments, I would say like it's pretty easier, like definitely easier to definitely keep track or like basically make sure if an investment is doing well. So I want to ask more about like social investment, like how do you like measure social impact and so on. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
This is like an orchestra. We're orchestrating social impact, or what we call it, social gain and financial gain in one. Getting financial gain is a problem to a lot of businesses. Imagine combining that with social. So what we talked about earlier is that balancing, that you want to scale. Of course, you want to save 1 million people. But with 1 million, you need to raise trillions of dollars, right? So you need to understand your strength. You need to understand your weakness as an organization. And you need to understand also the complexity of trying to put things together. So the easiest part, like you said, you're right, is the financial side of investment. It's easier to track, but the social, there's a lot of other, school of thoughts. Before, in my time, 30 years ago, we're happy with EVA, the economic value added. It still works. Like for $1 I spent on educating this person up to graduation equals to $2 or $5 in terms of opportunity gain in a national. So that was an EFA evaluation. Now they use the word SROI, which is return on investment, but it's a social return on investment. It's mathematically quite challenging because there's a realm of social, there's a realm which is you need to monetize, right? You need to monetize.
It's kind of like if you graduate from higher education and then you earn some money working, and that's a return on its own, but you have to kind of like monetize that.
Unfortunately, for the social aspect, there should be an assumption, economic assumptions that you have to make. But you have to be really clear on your economic assumptions. Then you can calculate the return on investment, right? The SROI. Or there are other people who are just happy with some school of thoughts, they're happy with quantitative, which is like our qualitative that we do. Our Ibu Opi tentunya, our advisor said, oh, you need to dive and then talk more about the quality of the data with the people. So yeah, measuring social impact is expensive in itself, right? That's why we work with universities, or not officially with university, but with people of researcher of the university that's been with us for the longest time. And understand that it's time-consuming, resource
intensive.
Intensive to create data, but we want to stay, I guess, faithful to what we do, because to us, it's important that we know that every single time, every single day pass by, every single dollar that we spend empowering actually comes back, to really impacting the family. Because otherwise, who are you fooling? You can't fool yourself. This is a personal thing, right? For me, I take this mission as a personal thing that I need to let the next generation to go. So it has to have the buy-in that we're here, we're not trying to explode our numbers like some startups do, only to get investment, evaluation. We're not in the mindset. So you need to look into your heart, like really honest with yourself. That's why I use the word integrity. I use the word track record. I use the word a time that you cannot buy. If people see that you're loyal to the mission, that you're faithful to your course, then people will invest. So it's coming back to your question. People will invest in you. Probably, maybe now that if you have an investment, it's easier to get investment than people to donate in this climate. It's harder to get people to donate.
Yeah.
It's easier if I use the word sell, mutual funds product. Because investment, people know the principle. I'm actually doing you a favor. If you invest in the capital market, you may not get 18% back.
Yeah.
Who gets 18% back? But we have a group of asset managers who are just doing this for you. And you don't feel like giving, you don't feel like donating, you feel like investing, but you're doing good at the same time. That's what I'm after.
Yeah. Before, unfortunately, the time is running out, but I just would like to, ask you to share, I guess, as the final words for today. You mentioned about humility. You mentioned about resilience, and our students are, some of the future leaders in their respective countries and communities. What are your final message to this aspiring entrepreneurs and hopefully aspiring social entrepreneur?
Yeah, the two words that you picked up from all this, humility, resilience, very important. And these things you only get from suffering. I'm not saying that you have to suffer, like you have to find suffering, no. But, for example, you have a heart, professor, or you have a friend who is not too friendly. That's part of being hard, living not in the toll road. So take that as an opportunity to be resilient, to exercise humility, because it goes a long way, you as an entrepreneur, because that's what you do. You try to raise capital. It's so hard. It's like auditioning. It's auditioning and being told, you're not good enough, you're not beautiful enough, I don't want you. How many, right? Resilience. How many rejects you're gonna get after one yes? 20, sometimes 100. So if you don't have that resilience, hard work, but keeping your integrity intact, then that's something you can use in the long run. Entrepreneurship in itself is difficult. Social entrepreneurship is combining, orchestrating social and financial return. It's an art. Only those who are really serious would actually come across and create meaningful impact. But you have to be innovative. You have to think outside of the box like nobody has done it before. This little fine-tuning, throwing education of the next generation to a microfinance clients, never done before. But we want to try it out because we believe in the value of it. So stick with what you believe, the cause that is close to your heart, work hard, and I'm sure don't be afraid of, going through that valley of the death because there you'll find strength and you will rise up as a winner.
Thank you so much. Give a round of applause. Thank you so much, Ibu Veronica, for the enlightening discussion on social entrepreneurship. This is a relatively new topic, not only in the community, but also us in the higher education. So we continuously learn about this mission, and hopefully, some of you guys will be interested in pursuing social entrepreneurship in the near future. So again, thank you, Ibu Veronica, and again, a round of applause for Ibu Veronica and her team. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ibu Veronica.